All right, everybody, welcome into the channel. Black and Gold Breakdown, talking all things Steelers. Happy March Madness. I hope all of you go perfect in your bracket and have a great time gambling. I've watched precisely 0 college basketball games this year, as have, I assume, most of you who are partaking in making a bracket and betting and all of this. I can't name a single college basketball player. That's not like there's not a bitter. If somebody broke into my apartment right now and was like, "You're gonna die unless you can name me one college basketball player," and I'd have to be like, "Oh, tell my family I love them." I don't know. I college basketball in America is the exact same thing as like the World Cup, except it happens every year, where nobody cares about it until March, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, "Actually, I think Marquette's great," and we're like, "All right, dude, I'm sure you do." But it'll be fun. It's always fun to watch and be part of it. So I think what did I put for my Final Four? Again, this is somebody who's watched 0 college basketball. I had Wisconsin, Kentucky, Creighton, Florida. So do with that what you will. I've got bets in on teams I've never watched. Maybe that's signs of a gambling problem. I don't know. Welcome into the show, though. Yeah, we're talking my latest Steelers mock draft. So I wrote it up at Behind the Steel Curtain. By the way, go read that. And keep up with everything at Behind the Steel Curtain, SB Nation's Steelers site. I'm the deputy editor over there. So if you want to check out all the written work that me and the rest of the staff do, go and check out Behind the Steel Curtain. It's a lot of good stuff. So my 4.0 Steelers mock draft. That is what we are talking about today. I probably should have made little fun banners to put along the bottom of the screen. That would have been good, but I didn't. So you get what you get. So sorry about that. But we'll get into it. We'll go pick by pick, and if you're seeing the thumbnail on YouTube, I'm trading George Pickens. I'm sure a lot of you will be incredibly unhappy about that, but won't get irrationally angry in the comments at all. I think that before I get into that, I'll say I think that there's just a lot of smoke for there to not be any fire to that. I think it's going to happen. And if it happens on draft day, very similar to how AJ Brown's happen on draft day, then that's what happens. We'll see if I'm right. We'll see if I'm wrong. But that's just what I think will happen. Regardless, let's dive into this thing. And if you tune in late, I'll go back over it a few times. But to start, round 1, pick 21. Missouri wide receiver Luther Burden. I think that even if they don't trade Pickens this year, he's not going to be around for the long-term future. They're not going to extend him. They're not going to pay him. So even if they keep him throughout this year, it couldn't hurt getting in another guy who eventually is going to take over for him. And Luther Burden is a guy who can eat underneath while DK Metcalf eats over the top and takes the top off the defense. So didn't have as good a year in 2024 as he did in 2023. But man, this is a guy who can succeed at all 3 levels in terms of route running, getting open, creating separation. And if the Steelers can get him at 21, I think they should. So Luther Burden out of Missouri, wide receiver in round 1. Now let's get into the George Pickens trade, which y'all came here for. So if you watched the pump fake with me and my good friend Taylor Kyles, we were talking about the New England Patriots. He covers New England, and I proposed that the Steelers trade George Pickens to New England to give Drake May his go-to target. Because look at the receivers that the Patriots have right now. It's Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne. They've got very similar to what the Steelers roster was last year in terms of having a bunch of 4 and maybe number 3 receivers, except they don't have a number 1 whatsoever. So the Steelers trade George Pickens to the Patriots in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick and a 2026 fifth-round pick. And the pick that they get, the Patriots have 2 third-round picks. They get pick number 69 from the Patriots. And George Pickens goes to New England. And again, it's a 2025 third, which is pick number 69. And the Steelers also get a 2026 fifth round pick. And like I said, there's just too much smoke for me to believe that there's not any fire around this. Jerry Dulac, in his Q&A on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, said that he believes that the Steelers will trade Pickens this year. And I think that there's a lot of people who believe that, myself included. And then Kabali was on the radio and said that if Pickens were to request a trade, they would just trade him. Like, they're not going to put up any sort of fight if he wants to go elsewhere, which tells you all you need to really know. Like, they're okay moving on from Pickens. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, behind the scenes stuff that maybe nobody else sees, on top of the fact, all the on-field tantrums and whatnot, the multiple iterations of, just visibly seeing him quit on plays. I think that wears on a team. And I think that once they traded and paid DK Metcalf, they kind of sealed the long-term future and fate of Pickens being on the team. So, again, it might not happen this year. I think it will happen eventually where they move on from him and don't extend him. Maybe they just try to get the comp pick for him. But if you can get multiple picks for him, why not do it now in a year where you don't have Super Bowl aspirations, and build and get other pieces to put around for the future of the team? So with that said, after the trade, the Steelers take, oh, Lord Almighty, I think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. I think Tomlin has hinted at this a little bit, and like thinking back to his end of season presser, continuing to reiterate the importance of mobility at the quarterback position. He also said, hey, look, like, there's plenty of guys who weren't, top 10 picks that are playing well right now. And he named Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, two guys who are incredibly mobile, who are raw coming out of school, and needed to really fine tune their passing mechanics, which both of them have. I think that if Milroe is there for the Steelers, not in the first round, I don't think they're going to take him in the first. But if this trade does happen, or even if he's there at 83, and they don't make any sort of trade, he's there at 83, I think he's the pick. So to me, it worries me. I've written multiple times, like when I was at the Senior Bowl, watching Jalen Milroe throw, I was like, look, man, there's not a lot there. Yeah, he's athletic and he can run, but there's not a lot there from a passing perspective to really love. But we've also seen multiple prospects come out that were really raw, and turn into stars. The aforementioned Lamar Jackson wasn't a good passer coming out of college. Jalen Hurts wasn't a great passer coming out of college. Josh Allen wasn't an accurate passer coming out of college. That's not to say that I think Jalen Milroe will become, get to the level of those three. Rather, it's just to point out that it's possible for guys to get better and improve on things that they need to improve on. My worry is that I just don't believe in the Steelers to develop a quarterback, which is, I'm going to be worried about that. Whoever, the quarterback they take ends up being, whether it's this year or whether it's next year when they take a quarterback in Pittsburgh. I have a lot of doubts because this staff, and we talked about it when we, talked about Jackson Dart, this staff just isn't good at developing quarterbacks. And when you've got frankly speaking, a stuck in the past, stubborn, stuck in his ways, not going to change head coach who doesn't really seem to put a lot of emphasis on the offensive side of the ball, like, I worry about that. You don't have like a quarterback guru on your staff. Like, there's a lot to worry about here, regardless of who the pick is. Like I said, I have my doubts with Jalen Milroe because he's not a very good passer right now. Those things can obviously be improved upon, but I don't know if I trust the Steelers to be the team to do it. I think he's going to be the pick at some point in the draft. I would have a lot more confidence in him reaching his, the upside and potential getting closer to being reached if he were to go to a team like Minnesota or Green Bay or San Francisco, like a team with great offensive-minded, forward-thinking head coaches, rather than Pittsburgh, where they don't have any of that. So I'm doubtful that it'll work, but I think that Jalen Milroe is going to be a Steeler. So after the George Pickens trade, they use the pick that they get from New England to take Jalen Milroe. All right. Round 3, pick 83, running back DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Really good balanced runner. Is good in both zone and gap runs, elusive. And I think that running back trio of Jalen Warren, DJ Giddens, and Kenneth Gainwell, you can do some damage with that. So they might lean into going with more of a power back. DJ Giddens, has some power to him, but if they wanted to go with like a bigger body, I could see that happening. But seeing what they have right now in Warren and Gainwell, if they added Giddens to that, I would really love the trio that they have at their disposal. It would be similar in my mind to what Buffalo has right now with James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson, where you've got 3 guys that can all contribute. Obviously, James Cook is the bell cow, and Jalen Warren would be the bell cow here, where he gets the majority of the carries. But if you give DJ Giddens, 8-9 touches a game out of the backfield, you give Kenneth Gainwell 6 to 8 touches a game out of the backfield, and maybe a catch or 2. They can make things happen when they have the ball in their hands. So all of these guys playing their roles well could help out whoever the quarterback's going to be in 2025. So DJ Giddens, running back out of Kansas State. Round 4, pick 123, defensive tackle JJ Puegs out of Ole Miss. Good disruptor against the run and pass. The Steelers have added a lot of defensive linemen to their room. I don't think all of them are going to be there, obviously, in week 1. So there's going to be some semblance of competition, but they've added a lot of older veterans. I think adding a young guy to that room would make a lot of sense. And it would be competition for, the 2 guys that they've recently signed, whose names are, I'm still not used to saying, but they signed, what was it? A guy from New England who started 16 games last year, and then they just signed a reserve from Jacksonville. So, as well as bringing back Isaiah Loudermilk. So I think adding a guy in the 4th round who can compete to be a rotational player right off the bat makes sense. Now, granted, I understand a lot of people think that they should go defensive tackle in round 1 or 2, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. But with all the moves that they've already made, I don't think they're gonna. I think it's probably going to be either a receiver or a cornerback, and I could be wrong. I think, like I said, I think they probably should go defensive tackle in round 1 or 2. I just don't know if that's what they're going to do. So JJ Puegs, Ole Miss. Round 5, pick 156, Kobe King, linebacker out of Penn State. Steelers let Landon Roberts go. They bring in Malik Harrison. I don't love that signing at all. And with Cole Holcomb, the injury stuff is still very much a toss in the air, and he's not going to be there for the long term. So get you another young guy who can complement Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson pretty well. I think Kobe King, incredible run defender. Doesn't necessarily have the coverage skills necessary, but he can be that a Landon Roberts type guy where you plug him in short yardage situations. Say that 5 times fast. And he can be the guy who blitzes the A-gap, powers through, and makes big plays against the run. Really good, just nose for the ball in those situations. So if you can get Kobe King in round 5, I think that makes sense for the future of your off-ball linebacking core to get you, a run specialist to help slow down opposing run games. All right, round 6, pick 185, edge rusher Tyrion Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia. The Steelers don't really have a proven edge behind Watt, Highsmith, and Nick Herbig. We've seen that number 4 role filled by guys like Marcus Golden and Preston Smith over the past couple years. If you can get a young guy in there to maybe try to compete to become that, I think that would be good. And if he's not, at least you might have, some sort of special teams contributor. But it's a 6th-round pick. You kind of throw darts at the wall at that point. And then round 7, pick 229, tight end Oronde Gadsden out of Syracuse. Michael Pruitt's gone, and they need somebody who can run block, which Gadsden can do, but he also caught 73 passes and 7 touchdowns for Syracuse last year. If he's there, absolutely take him. You look at the other tight ends that they currently have. Obviously, Pat Freiermuth is the leader there. Darnell Washington, I would like to see used more in the pass game because he showed the ability to do it at Georgia. They haven't really done that a lot, which is frustrating when you have a guy that big. But if you can add another big body who can block and catch passes in the 7th round, then yeah, go ahead and do that. I'm on board with that. So to recap this mock draft, round 1, wide receiver Luther Burden out of Missouri, and then the trade with the New England Patriots sending George Pickens to the Patriots in exchange for pick number 69 in this year's draft and a 2026 fifth-round pick. They used that selection to take Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama. Their own third-round pick, they take running back DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. And the fourth round, they take defensive tackle J.J. Puigs out of Ole Miss. Round 5, they take linebacker Kobe King out of Penn State. Round 6, they take Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, the edge rusher out of Georgia. And in round 7, tight end Oronde Gadsden out of Syracuse is my mock draft 4.0. And again, you can read all of that at Behind the Steel Curtain, SB Nation's dedicated Steelers site, which I am the deputy editor for. So go ahead and check all that stuff out. Steel Pen. What round pick will we get for Pickens? Like I said here, 3 this year and a 5 next year. I think that's probably what they would get for him. DK Metcalf obviously went for a 2 and a day 3 pick swap. I don't think Pickens is going to go for that. So I think a third-round pick is probably the ceiling that you're going to get for him. But if you're a team like New England, who, like I said, is in desperate need of a go-to guy for Pickens. Now, they did just bring in Stephon Diggs for a visit, so it's possible that they add him as well, but Stephon Diggs is also going to be 32. He's not going to be the long-term answer at the position, and he's not really a deep threat anymore. I think that he's probably going to be more so their underneath, get open, and get some yards after the catch guy. So in a situation where Stephon Diggs could be the X, George Pickens could be the Z, and just be the over-the-top guy. So if they turn what they currently have into Stephon Diggs and George Pickens, that's going to be a handful for Mike Vrabel to deal with in terms of potential locker room stuff. But it also gives Drake May 2 reliable targets. And if you can get a 3 and a 5 for George Pickens rather than just getting a comp pick, I think it makes sense to just do it now. Like I said, a lot of people are like, well, why would they not just, go through this year with DK and George? Well, they're not. This isn't a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. So if you can get more for him right now, then it makes sense to just get more for him rather than only getting, a third-round comp. That's my stance on it, at least, in terms of, I think as soon as they traded for DK Metcalf and they paid DK Metcalf, that started a timer on how long George Pickens is going to remain with the team. I'm not the only one who thinks that. Dulac thinks it. Kaboli thinks it. So I think it's a matter of when, not if, they move on from Pickens. How they do it, I don't know. But I would bet my life he does not get an extension from the Steelers. And look, it's possible that he just requests a trade this summer, knowing that he's not going to get paid by Pittsburgh, and he would rather go to a team that will pay him. It's not complete. It's very common when it comes to receivers who do that. So wouldn't shock me at all if we see George Pickens get traded on draft day. We've seen A.J. Brown got traded on draft day. And what better team, by the way, to do it than New England, with Mike Vrabel as the head coach, who saw his general manager trade away A.J. Brown and got pissed about it. Why not bring in his own version of A.J. Brown and give Drake May that over-the-top threat? Oh, no. So trade Pickens for a 3 and a 5. George Pickens, who is a guy with the right quarterback and system, can be a 100-catch, 1,500-yard dude. Stupid fan base, stupid franchise if they do this. Look, man, A, it's not that serious. Relax. B, George Pickens has never sniffed 100 catches in his career, so I think that might be a little bit far-fetched. 1,500 yards is also a lot. So I think that's a little bit far-fetched that he's going to do that in Pittsburgh. And again, they aren't going to extend him. So if you're not going to pay him, get something for him now rather than just getting a third-round comp pick. If you can get an additional draft pick, and a draft where you don't have a second-round pick, get an additional third-round pick, which is right at the beginning of the third, so it's basically a late second. I don't understand why so many people clutch their pearls when I suggest, hey, they might trade George Pickens. Hey, look, Edward, I appreciate you watching, appreciate you commenting. I just don't understand the outrage. I really don't. This isn't a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. So you may as well If you're not going to pay this guy, which you made it pretty clear you're not going to when you paid DK Metcalf, then just move on from him now. Rip off the Band-Aid, get some picks, and take a flyer on a quarterback. I think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. Tomlin's talked about mobility. Well, Jalen Milroe just ran a 4.37 at his pro day. So, again, I just don't understand the pearl clutching here when it comes to, oh, man, why would they ever trade George Pickens? They're not going to extend him. I would bet my life he does not see an extension. He does not see a second contract with the Steelers. It'll be with someone else. He'll get paid by somebody, obviously, like he's talented. But they just paid DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf and George Pickens largely do the same thing. They're both incredible deep ball threats, not necessarily route technicians. Like, you got to have some balance in here as well. And having two dudes who are really good at taking the roof off the defense, but aren't very good at, establishing a deep route tree. Like, you got to have some balance there. I just don't see them giving Pickens a deal after giving DK Metcalf a deal. So we'll see. I think that he gets traded, and I think it happens this year. But we shall see. If you have any other questions, comments, be sure to leave them in the chat. Like I said, wanted to do this before the games begin. I know everybody's going to be incredibly invested in March Madness, as is the time of year for that. So if you have any other questions, comments on the mock draft, and again, I'll run through it one more time if you're just tuning in on YouTube. And if you are just tuning in on YouTube and you're not already subscribed to the channel, please be sure to do that. Turn on notifications so you know when we go live to talk about the Steelers. Not only that, I do my national podcast on here as well, the Pump Fake. So subscribe to the channel for all the NFL content. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. But yes, the mock draft is first round, wide receiver Luther Burden out of Missouri to replace a George Pickens, who gets traded in my mock draft to the New England Patriots for a 2025 third and a 2026 fifth round pick. And with the pick that they get from the Patriots, number 69, they draft quarterback Jalen Milroe. And with their own third round pick, they take running back DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. In the fourth round, they take defensive tackle JJ Puigs out of Ole Miss. In round 5, they take linebacker Kobe King out of Penn State. Round 6, they take edge rusher Tyrone Ingram Dawkins out of Georgia. And in round 7, they take tight end Oronde Gadsden out of Syracuse. So that is my mock draft, and you can read it on Behind the Steel Curtain. So that's what I foresee happening. And again, God help us, the NFL draft is still like over a month away. They should just move it up to like April 1st, because this is the part of the offseason where we get into guys like draft Twitter, like talking about Tet McMillan's 40 time. Like, really, we're going to spend a day talking about if a guy's really as good as you think he is because he ran 0.06 of a second slower than you thought he would. I hate this time of year in terms of football, because everybody starts overthinking and making dumb takes and overanalyzing stuff when it comes to the draft. And look, I'm not going to pretend to be a draft Nick. I'm not a college football expert by any means. But we can also point out, like, all right, dude, if he had 3 to 4 years of good film and you think he's a good football player, I highly doubt him running 0.06 of a second slower should interfere with your thoughts on him. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So we shall see. We'll see what happens. But move the draft up to April 1st. That's this is the time of year where everybody does, the NFL has rule pitches and stuff to change and whatnot. Like the Packers just pitched to ban the tush push, which should absolutely be banned. It's a stupid play. It's not a football play. It sucks. Ban it. But I think somebody should be like, let's move the draft up. Let's move it 3 weeks ahead. There's no reason for us to do this. Casey says, who'd you pick first? All right, so I'll run through it. Luther Burden, the receiver out of Missouri, is my first round pick for the Steelers here because of the George Pickens trade. Look, even if they don't trade Pickens, if they took Luther Burden, totally cool with it. Triple down on good receivers because Pickens isn't going to be there past this year, even if he does play with the Steelers in 2025. So if you have Luther Burden there to kind of groom to end up replacing Pickens, that's good too. Or if they do trade Pickens, then you can just slot Luther Burden into that opposite boundary role, opposite of DK Metcalf. So that's who I would have them taking first. Now, like I said before, if they took a defensive tackle, I think that would be great. That's probably what they should do. It doesn't look like they're going to. Like, they've signed so many defensive linemen this offseason. I don't understand why. It felt like the perfect time in a class like this to take one of these really good defensive linemen like a Derek Harmon or a Walter Nolan or a Kenneth Grant. I would still like to see them do that. I just don't know if they're gonna. So Luther Burden, the receiver out of Missouri, is my first round pick for them. And then in terms of what the Pickens trade is, if you're just tuning in live, to the New England Patriots for a 2025 third round pick, which is pick number 69, and a 2026 fifth round pick. And with that third round pick they get from the Patriots, they take Jalen Milroe, who is going to be a project. And I don't know if I trust them to do that project well, but it certainly feels like he's going to be a Steeler. And look, this is the time of year where every other day somebody's like, oh, well, actually, the Steelers love this guy. 2 days ago it was Jackson Dart. And a lot of that was because Daniel Jeremiah said or predicted that he would go there in his latest mock. So we'll see what happens. I'm very, very bullish on me thinking that they're going to trade Pickens. Very bullish that I think they're going to draft Milroe. Don't think it'll be in the first round. I think that would be a colossal mistake. But if he's there in the third, yeah, I understand. You got to throw some darts at a board and take some flyers here until you find your guy. Hasn't been a lot of success over the past 5 years in quarterbacks taken after the first round, though. Has not been a lot of success in doing it. You're basically just throwing a pick away. But, you could also end up with your version of Dak Prescott, who went in the fourth round. It's not fun not having a quarterback. This is the world that you live in when you don't have a franchise quarterback. You just got to throw stuff at a wall and hope something sticks, which they've tried. They tried throwing the Kenny Pickett dart at the wall, and it did not stick because he's not good. And I'll keep hoping that Kenny Pickett becomes a starter for the Browns. I think that's great. Would love to see the Steelers play Kenny Pickett twice. They tried the Mitch Trubisky throw at the wall. That didn't work. They tried Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Now, we'll see if they try it with Jalen Milroe. Take a quarterback every year till you find one. Even the Patriots, like they had Brady, and they still drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, still took Jacoby Brissett. So, even when you've got a great quarterback, it's never a bad idea to have one just in case. And both of those guys went on to start games. Jimmy Garoppolo started in a Super Bowl and multiple NFC Championship games. Now, a lot of that was because Kyle Shanahan was his head coach. And as soon as he left Kyle Shanahan, he sucked. But when you're in this spot, you got to throw stuff at the ball. Also, like the DJ Giddens pick, he had a top 30 visit with them, if I remember correctly. I don't know if he did or not. I would have to look. Nick Faribault, my good buddy who covers the Steelers for Penn Live, is usually on top of that top 30 visit stuff. So let me look and see if he did say anything about him. Drum roll, please. Well, first of all, Faribault said that he would take DJ Giddens in round 3 a few days ago, apparently, according to his Twitter. But I don't know if he's had a top 30 visit or not. So once I'm done here, I'm sure I could find out, but I don't want to, just stare at my phone looking up stuff during the show. But maybe. But yeah, I'd be on board with that. They're going to take a running back at some point. because they need a second one behind Warren. I think Gainwell is going to be the 3. So get yourselves a number 2 behind Jalen Warren. I think DJ Giddens would be a good one. I know a lot of people would like to see Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. I think that if they still had a second round pick, that would be what they might have done. Don't think he's going to be there in the 3rd round. But I'm completely okay with them, trading for DK Metcalf and giving themselves a one of the future, receiver of the future. But again, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, and you like, the Steelers conversation or whatnot, do a lot of this during the offseason, especially. If you guys have been watching since last offseason when I started doing this, I want to do it more during the regular season this year. It's just, writing responsibilities and stuff. It makes it a little bit harder to have the energy to do it in the regular season. But throughout the offseason, I'll be here. And then once we get closer to the regular season, we'll try to do at least one of these a week. But, that's a few months down the road. We'll worry about it then. But, throughout the offseason, especially around draft time, like draft time last year was very fun on this channel. There's a lot of optimism. They had made the moves at quarterback. They had a really good draft, and it was a lot of fun to talk about. So we'll see what comes of it. But if you're not already subscribed, be sure to do that. Also, go subscribe over to AFC North Talk, where me, Q, Ace, Sonny are back doing like once a week shows in the off season. We did one last week just talking about free agency and whatnot. So go subscribe to AFC North Talk as well with me and the boys. Always a good time talking to them. Like I said, we're back doing once a week shows. So I assume we're doing it through the remainder of the off season. I think in June we might take a little bit of a step back. I don't know what the schedule is right now, but for right now, we're doing shows. Robert says, agreed to trade Pickens and get something for him, whether he gets traded before the draft or by the trade deadline during the season. This will be a waste of a season regardless of the quarterback, so get something. That's kind of how I feel. Like, unless you think the Steelers can win a Super Bowl and you think that they shouldn't trade Pickens because of that, which if you believe that, I admire your belief and your fandom. I don't think that this is close to a Super Bowl team. Mostly because we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. And if it's Rodgers, obviously they have a better chance of doing it than if it's Mason. But, at this point, I think a lot of people are just getting so impatient with the Rodgers stuff that they would just rather it just be Mason, so at least they know. I'm starting to follow. I go back and forth. I'm a fan more than anything. I understand that I get to do this for a job and it's awesome, but I'm a fan more than anything when it comes to this team. And I get pissed off just like everybody else. Rodgers is the better option for the year. We'll see if it ends up happening. He's going to take his time. And from a fan perspective, yeah, it's annoying. But if I was Aaron too, I think that there's a lot of, in his mind, I can wait for as long as I want. And then if a contending team loses their quarterback, I'll be the first call they make. And then maybe I can give myself a better chance at a Super Bowl win, which I hear him on that. I don't know if that's what his thought process is. It feels like it might be. But say the Dolphins lose Tua Tagovailoa to an injury during training camp. Immediately, they're calling Aaron Rodgers. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, would you rather go to Miami and play with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and a defense that got better last year? Or would you rather go to the Giants or the Steelers right now? I get why he's waiting. I understand it's annoying from a fan perspective. And even myself, I was like, just play Mason. This is annoying. That's from the fan in me. But if I was Aaron, I get it. if a contending team, which by the way, almost yearly, we see a quarterback go down on a good team and it just tanks their year. I do wonder if there's like a situation where like the 49ers like shock everybody and trade Purdy somewhere and sign Rodgers for the year. I think that's the most fun outcome of this. It's just something completely out of left field. It's like they trade Purdy to, I don't know, what's a good place to trade Purdy to? I don't want to say Tennessee because I think they're going to take Cam Ward and that makes sense. But they trade him somewhere. And then they bring in Aaron for the year. And then in 2026, they draft a guy. I think that would be the most fun outcome where it's just completely out of left field. Nobody sees it coming. I could get on board with that. They trade Purdy to like the Saints. I don't know. But I think that would be the more fun outcome. And again, as fans, I understand that, the frustration with Rodgers not making up his mind is real. It's real for me too. But if I was Aaron, I would probably be doing the same thing. Now, we're just going to wait this thing out. I don't have to be in a rush to sign. And once like training camp rolls around, if a guy gets hurt, then maybe that's, when I get a call from a more attractive offer from a team. So it is a pain in the butt, but that's the spot that we find ourselves in. So appreciate everybody for watching. Again, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please be sure to do so. Enjoy March Madness if you are partaking in watching or gambling or whatever you're doing. Hey, do it responsibly. Don't bet the mortgage on Creighton. All right, be smart and don't be crazy with it. Yeah, enjoy your day. Wanted to do this before games started just because I know that that's what everybody's going to be consumed by over these next few weeks with the tournament going on. And then it takes us right into, getting closer to the draft. So again, God help us. We're still a month away from the draft, but once March Madness is over, we'll be like a few weeks. So getting closer by the day. Subscribe to the channel. Listen to the Pump Fake as well, wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Have a good day. We'll talk soon.